Hi, I'm Zenith, and I want to ask you a question. Do you think that the furry fandom is safe for work or not safe for work? Now, in reality, I don't care about your opinion, but this makes a pretty great segue into the topic of this video. The communities of the furry fandom. In this video, I'm going to expose Twitter.com and show how the furry fandom is structured. Before we begin though, do the YouTube things. Look, if you've been around the Twitch sphere at all, you've probably seen one of these posts by the Reddit user KGersh. These show the top streamers of Twitch and their communities. The size of the circle is how many viewers a streamer has, and the lines represent a shared audience between two different streamers. What's cool is that it analytically shows a lot of communities that people intuitively knew. Right here you have League streamers, and here's the Dream Tangential Minecraft streamers, and now every community in between. When I saw this post, all I really thought was, I could yoink this for my own video. I want to do something similar with furry Twitter. All I have to do is get the top furry accounts, collect their followers, and then compare their follower/fan bases. Sounds simple, right? No, not at all. When you create a Twitter account, you have the option to follow others, and people can follow you back. Since you watching the video is probably a furry, my logic is that you will most likely follow other furries. And if another furry likes you, then they can follow you back. Congratulations, you've made an online friend. But who cares? I mean, what's more important is that you made my life easier. Here's how. I wrote a quick, took me 2 months, script to collect the followers and following of the largest furry accounts. I got the subset of these two lists, or their mutuals, and then did the same process for them. Doing this repeatedly, you get something called a breadth first search algorithm, which is yucky computer science bad. We don't care. After getting this process to work though, I ended up collecting the followers of over 1,300 unique Twitter accounts. And real quick, just to show you how stupid that is, here's the file that stores my data. It is massive, 780 megabytes and 26 million lines of JSON. But this is just raw data. I gotta make it useful now. Processing the data is actually fairly easy. It's very demanding computing-wise, but actually just a very simple operation. When I compare the followers of Major to Beta Eta Delotl, hope I got that right this time, what I get after this operation is something called an edge list, which represents the amount of followers shared between everyone to everyone else that I collected. Now, let's open this up in Gephi. Gephi is a free open source graphing tool that I used for this project, and here's how I cleaned my data. So in Gephi, all I have to do is import my labels and my edges. After that, you see we get this massive black box. This is all the data unprocessed. Now the next thing we have to do is put in a filter for the edges. We filter out any edge smaller than 4,000. As you can see, it's already starting to take shape. And now you may be asking, why remove edges? Well, Twitter is a very large platform, so odds are that even if two large furries don't interact in any way, they may still have 1 or 2 shared followers, which is really no shared audience. Now your second question is probably, why remove edges under 4,000 shared followers? We'll get back to that later. The next step is to make the graph look a little bit more readable. So I changed the circle size of each person to represent how many followers they have. Next, let's add some color. So I run something called modularity, and what this does is this finds groups inside of the dataset. I run it, and then you see this graph. Now you can see on the left that there are 5 communities that have a considerable amount, and then like hundreds of size 1 groups. Each of these is a person that did not have more than 4,000 shared followers with anybody else, so their group can't be determined. That's a side effect of the edge weight filter that we'll get back to later. Otherwise, all I do now is color the communities and get rid of all the extras. Now, it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. Whoa, relax! I'm gonna get copyrighted by Steam! And there you have it, the furry fandom on Twitter. I'll show you around. So in this pink section, you may or may not recognize some names. It's mostly furry YouTubers, conventions, fursuit makers. Basically, most of the safe for work content creators. And moving over here to green, we have more generic Twitter accounts. People like Jib Cody, Keke Flipnote, Odd Ones Out, and plenty of others. Now, moving on to yellow, we have porn. And moving down here to blue, we have more porn. And finally, moving down to orange, we actually have the My Little Pony fandom. Nah, I'm just messing with you, it's just more porn. Thankfully. And you know, it's actually kind of ironic that the fandom is in the shape of a massive Before we begin, here's a few helpful things. First, here's a chart that shows each color of the communities. I'll keep this down in the bottom right for reference. Next, for some knowledge on how this map was generated, the algorithm that created this graph is called Force Atlas 2. It uses math far more complicated than I'd ever like to want or know, but the gist of it is that similar people attract and opposite people repel. And in this case, the more followers you share, the more similar you are. Now that you have the background information, these next few insights will make sense. Number 1. There is an inherent gap between relatively safe for work and not safe for work furries. You see this area right here? There's an obvious top gap. Not a single person in the dataset fit the category of being similar to the neighbors of this area. And looking down between orange and green, the gap is a little less obvious but still there. Number 2. The content you post matters for your account's fanbase. Let's look at Rick Griffin's accounts. Here we see that House Pets is in the dead center of green, and Rick's writing is in the same general area, but R. Griffin Studios, the account where Rick posts more provocative content, is established in the blue group. It's the same person, but because they post different content on different accounts, these accounts end up in different communities. Number 3. This is gonna sound a little crazy, but sexual preference is actually encoded into this graph. I spent so long trying to figure out the difference between orange and yellow. I mean, I knew they were all definitely 18+, but I couldn't find the difference. I was stuck browsing various accounts until it hit me. Orange draws pee-pee while yellow draws boobie. It's actually a bit more nuanced than that. From orange to blue to yellow, it's more of a spectrum of attraction. On the orange, you get mostly masculine figures. Blue is fairly mixed with no real preference. And then yellow, you get mostly feminine figures. And I say it's a spectrum because, for instance, look at Tokufuji right here. They draw hella femboys, but they're in the yellow community because it's feminine leaning. Number 4. The furry fandom is slightly masculine leaning. For whatever reason, the pink and green communities gravitate towards the orange community. For a moment, I want you to pay attention to Nonstop Pup here. They do something pretty unique. They bridge the gap between the pink and the orange communities. And looking through everyone else in the dataset, I struggle to find similar connections from the yellow community to the pink. In summary, these points all build on each other, and just like the Twitch map, it really does make intuitive sense the more you look at it. At the beginning of the video, remember when I asked you if the fandom was Sifwa or Nsifwa? Well, it's actually a 50-50, so you're all wrong. I won't bore you with any more analysis, but I think the best way for you to get a feel of the data is to browse it yourself. Down in the description, I have links to a website where you can view the graph yourself, and there's a Google spreadsheet containing the community descriptions, edges, and nodes of the dataset. This section will be very brief. All I really wanted to cover is the issue of removing edges. You see, if I left in every single edge weight, the final map derived from Force Atlas 2 becomes meaningless. First off, with the number of connections, it becomes unbearably slow to calculate. This is sped up a lot, by the way. But more importantly, the final graph you get is essentially useless. I mean, look at this. It's just a blob of clown barf. So the workaround is to do what I did. Filter out the smaller edges so that only the larger, more important ones remain. Because the sparser the graph is, the better Force Atlas performs. However, the unintended consequence is that smaller nodes may get removed. I mean, think about it like this. If you have 3,000 followers, there's absolutely no way that you can share 4,000 followers with anybody else. In a perfect map of the furry fandom on Twitter, I would include every single sized person, even all the way down to accounts with less than 100 followers. However, with my current strategy, that's just not possible. If I ever did something like this again, maybe a good way to fix the issue is to base it on relative percentages. Something like, if the edge weight is more than 5% of the smallest of the two users, it stays. Otherwise, don't include the edge. But as of now, I don't have an effective solution. I bet there are plenty more issues with my methodology, but when this video goes live, it's been over 3 months since I started this project, and I'm writing the script at 5 AM, so I don't care anymore. But I really did like the feedback I got about the furry detector and my other projects, so leave a comment if you spotted anything that could be improved. I know I memed this earlier in the video, but like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and maybe even share. This took an incredible amount of effort, and I'd appreciate any of the support. Really, the only thing I have to say left is go follow my socials, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, I'm Zenith. My furry detector has now been released on GitHub for everyone to use. All you need is Python, a Twitter API key, and install the required modules. So you